King David, first of all, he was like the Elon Musk of his day. Richest man around. He's got all the resources he needs. He is at the top of his game in the sense that in that day, military strength was extremely highly valued, and he helped Israel come into their inheritance, into their promise. He had surrounded himself with gifted people, soldiers that could kill 800-900 people by themselves, one against 800. It's just bizarre. So he's surrounded by extremely gifted people. He's an inventor. He's a creative genius. He's all these things. And if you imagine yourself being in that position where you have access to anything and everything, and you're the leader of the nation that impacts the course of history. So you're in this real privileged place of responsibility. And David was able to take everything going on in his world and reduce it down to one desire. And this is what hit me this morning as I was just for my own life. He said, one thing I have asked of the Lord, and that shall I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in his temple. So that stuns me that here you've got, when you have money or you have power, you have position, it increases your options. And so David has more options on what he's going to do with his life than anyone alive. Power gives that to you. And he reduced all of his options down to one thing. I'm going to seek to dwell in the house of the Lord, which is the presence of the Lord. Later he says, the Lord spoke to me and said, seek my face. And I said, Lord, your face I will seek. So the face of the Lord is connected to the house of the Lord. So here's this king who's got 1 billion options, who says, I've reduced the passion of my life to one thing. I want to dwell in the house of the Lord. I want to dwell in the abiding presence of the Spirit of God. That is my life. I will behold his beauty, so it's got to affect how I see. And I'll meditate in his temple, it's got to affect how I think. But what set it up, as David said, though a host encamp against me. So he's in the middle of incredible conflict. He said, though war rise against me, in spite of this I will be confident. One thing I shall seek of the Lord. So in the middle of this crazy conflict that he is in as a leader who knows how to carry responsibility well, in the middle of that insanity, he had the presence of mind to reduce everything to one thing. And if there's ever a time I'm tempted to not reduce it to one thing, it's when I've got the war against me, I've got the host and camp against me, I've got all these things that are going on that are just making my life hell, and I'm attempting to put out all these fires and all these these various things all at once. And David modeled something here that I think is really, really profound. He said, I whittled it down to one thing. And people will say, well, how is that practical? There's something about beholding his face that puts everything else in context. Everything else in context. I had the Lord speak to me once. He woke me in the middle of the night with this phrase. It was in the early days of revival, because I know it was in the first house we had when we lived here in Redding way, way back in the middle 90s. And he woke me in the night with this phrase. He said, he watches over the watch of those who watch the Lord. He watches over the watch. So you think of a watchman who has responsibility. So it's saying God will watch over your watch if you'll watch him. And so that is practical now, where suddenly my focus is on the presence of the Lord. It's on the face, the countenance of God, that he actually takes on my responsibilities when I give myself to really behold him. And I think being a presence-oriented person, a presence-oriented ministry, presence-oriented culture is more practical than we have thought. And so that's really what hit me this morning that I shared with our team. Though war rise against me, in spite of this I will be confident. One thing I've asked of the Lord. One thing. It was in the midst of conflict. He said I dialed it down to one thing. And,
Absolutely.